Welcome to Fruit Snacks, a weekday podcast that covers big ideas about the Christian worldview in a bite-sized format. Hey everyone, welcome back to Fruit Snacks. This week we're going to examine another question. And just for full disclosure, the source of these questions, I'm actually taking my youth group through a series of 20 difficult or apologetic related questions as our curriculum this semester over the summer and then into the fall semester. And so the question about sincerity, the sincerity trap, and this question, which we're going to cover this week, are from those discussions that we've been having. So this week's question, and every so often as we are covering doctrine and other topics, I'm going to intersperse some of these questions because I think they're good questions, they're important questions, and the answers are often interesting and helpful for those of us who may encounter these questions out there. So this week's question is really more of a statement, and it is this: isn't it arrogant and perhaps even intolerant of Christians to think or to say or to teach that we are the only ones who are right and everyone else is wrong? Or, another version of that we're the only ones who are right and everyone else is going to hell. Now, this is a kind of statement, if you've never encountered it before, or if you've never had someone say it to you, it can put you back on your heels a little bit because it is very emotionally and rhetorically powerful. I mean, no one wants to be accused of being arrogant or intolerant or of holding beliefs that are just inherently bad or even some would say evil. And yet that is basically what Christians are being accused of in a statement like this. And as I said, it can put us back on our heels a little bit if we're not ready for it. And it can make us feel like we need to apologize for our beliefs or even water down or change our beliefs because we don't want to appear arrogant or intolerant or like we are holier than thou and that we're judging everyone else. And so as we examine this question or this statement over the course of this week, there are three things that I want us to consider and to think about as we examine this statement a little more closely. We're going to look at one in today's episode. So the first thing to consider with a statement like this idea that isn't it arrogant or intolerant for you to think that you're right and for everyone else to be wrong, is to ask ourselves the question, is this a uniquely Christian problem? What I mean by that is if we were talking about a different topic, like the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus, for instance, I think there's a good case to be made that that's a uniquely Christian problem. Christians alone need to give a convincing account for why we should believe that Jesus rose from the dead. After all, no other worldview believes that he did. Muslims, for instance, are taught in the Quran that Jesus didn't actually even die, and so there's no need for a resurrection. So that's just one example, but the point is that only Christians really need to wrestle with the question of resurrection. Everyone else thinks that it just didn't happen, and so they don't have to account for it. But my question is that the case with a statement like this? You see, this idea that Christians are arrogant or intolerant is framed in such a way that if you're not careful, you would think this is a uniquely Christian problem to deal with and wrestle with. But the first thing I want to point out and get us to think about is that that's simply not true. In fact, every other worldview out there could be accused of the same thing. Isn't it true that other worldviews are equally exclusive? For instance, Muslims, to use them as an example again, would certainly say that they believe, because the Quran teaches it, that their beliefs in Allah are the true and correct beliefs, and people who aren't Muslims are going to be condemned. Mormons believe that they have a uniquely true interpretation of the way that reality actually is, and that they're the only true church. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they are right and everyone else is wrong. In fact, we can look at every major worldview, even atheism, and say, atheists believe that everyone who has a religious worldview of any kind is wrong, and that they're the ones that are right. So you see, when you examine it, this isn't a Christian problem at all. This is a human problem. Every worldview, no matter what you hold, needs to basically answer this. Isn't it arrogant or intolerant to think that you're right and everyone else is wrong? Well, not necessarily, because what's right and what's wrong is determined by the facts, the evidence, the proof, the reasons that we can give for why we should believe something over an alternative. And so when it comes to worldviews, they're all sort of competing in the same arena, and the worldview with the best evidence should win. And that necessarily means that if one worldview is correct and other worldviews are making competing and opposite claims about reality, they simply can't be true. So, yes, Christians are claiming that they're right and everyone else is wrong, but so is everyone else. And so the question is not whether it's intolerant to claim the exclusivity of objective truth. The question is, which claim of objective exclusive truth is the correct one? So in the rest of this week's episodes, on Wednesday and Friday, we're going to look at two more things to think about, questions to ask when it comes to this statement. But that's the first one. This isn't a uniquely Christian problem. I hope you'll join me for the rest of our discussion this week.